This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Hello, this is going to be a unique experiment this week with the show. I'm actually recording the show as I am in my car driving back from an annual event that I host in Keystone, Colorado. It's a 2-day event, roughly about 400 people in attendance, talking about technologies and innovations 3 to 8 years out. It's also the event each year where we do the premiere of our vision videos. We call that the near future. So actually, if you want to go check that out, you can just go over to YouTube and search for the near future, and you can see the 2016 release, the 2017, and fresh off the premiere, which occurred yesterday morning, is this year's near future. At this conference, I deliver 2 keynotes, one at the start of each day. And what I want to talk about is about the questions I get in these keynotes. They're pretty insightful, I think, about what's on people's minds. One question that I got in the Monday keynote that actually started me down a rant was my thoughts about artificial intelligence. Now, if you've listened to, well, we just recently did a show with Box and their use of AI dealing with content management. If you use Box being an online cloud service where you can store and share files and media and etc. And it was pretty insightful as far as how Box looks at artificial intelligence. If you go back even further, I did an interview with Stephen Guggenheimer, who was who is the vice president, corporate vice president at Microsoft, and oversees the AI work at Microsoft at the CES. So I did that at the Consumer Electronics Show this year. So the show came out, I'm guessing, somewhere in February, if I recall correctly. So those are 2 shows I've done already on AI. But this was a unique question. The question on Monday was specifically around in my thoughts on AI, and did I share or agree or disagree with other technology industry leaders, their thoughts on AI. Well, it was the subtle reference to what Elon Musk has raised as an alarm with regards to AI, and what others have said, whether AI is going to wipe out hundreds of thousands of jobs, or AI is going to be disastrous to humans and eventually take over, to AI is going to automate, so the labor-intensive, high-risk, boring kind of job functions will be replaced with AI and robots, etc. You know, everybody's out there talking about it in its full spectrum. One point that I made in my answer that I gave to the audience on Monday around AI was specifically to the issue of what I call ethical innovation. And what I mean by ethical innovation is, look, we as innovators, we can invent anything. You want to go use your highly creative, innovative skills to do harm, you can do that. You want to do it for good, you can do that too. And the question is how do you define ethical innovation or ethical innovators, and what defines ethical innovation? Is doing work for the military under military contract, is that ethical innovation or not ethical innovation? The point being is it's kind of gray, but at the same time, I think we're in the early phases of having a meaningful discussion around what is ethical innovation and how should we think about it from the standpoint of what it is we do and don't do. What do we invent and not invent? Now, it's not as simple as saying, well, this thing I'm going to go innovate on is ethical, because you have to be aware of the unintended consequences. While someone may go off and invent something that was viewed as being highly ethical, someone could find a way to use that exact same thing and do unethical things with it. So it's the first, second, third, fourth order unintended consequences. It's not your thoughts and your entire vision for the innovations you create. It's the thoughts about how are people going to use this, and will they use it for good or not? And so therefore that becomes at least something that I think innovators should talk about. Well, that's basically the crux of the answer that I gave to this audience on Monday, and it generated a lot of follow-up conversations around this whole concept of ethical innovation and unethical innovation, and what does that mean? And those of us who are in the innovation business, meaning whether you lead an innovation team, whether you're a lone innovator, or you're a chief innovation officer for a multinational large corporation, or you're head of your CTO for a government agency. What does ethical innovation mean, and how should we think about it? I don't have the answer, right? But I think it's a conversation that we in the innovation community should be having. And what does that mean from the standpoint of technology such as artificial intelligence, robotics, and others that are out there from the standpoint that could be viewed as being negative? And negative doesn't always mean that it's going to, be disastrous. How do we think about ethical innovation? Is an innovation that's going to, wipe out hundreds of thousands of jobs? Is that ethical or not ethical? It depends on which side of the table you're on in the conversation. So, but it opened up again, some interesting thoughts. And there's innovation leaders out there across the spectrum that all have varying different opinions. And employees are beginning to become activists around it. So if you look at what has happened at Google or what's happened at Amazon, where employees have put together petitions to their CEOs to tell their CEOs to not accept work for government agencies, don't do face recognition, I think was the one with Amazon or others. Google had a contract with one agency, and it seems that there was, thousands of employees at Google who were not happy about that, and thought that that was, quote, some form of evil innovation for use of technologies being invented by the engineers at Google. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. What do you think? Do you think there's a way to define this, or draw a box around it, or to have an opinion on this? And then, what would be the discussions and definitions around what this whole concept of, quote, ethical innovation? What does that mean? Now, there's other industries, such as, pharmaceutical, medical, biologists, and they have a whole category of employees called bioethicists. So the question I have is should we create a new job category for innovators? And there's innovation ethicists, and these are the people that debate and argue and try to put some form of definition or view on is this ethical or is this not ethical. Now, in the case of bioethicists or medical ethicists, I get a little bit of familiarity around that because of my wife, who's a nurse. And she's very involved in staying up and reading and understanding, what bioethicists say. She has a bunch of sites that she subscribes to and gets their daily newsletters, those kinds of things. And they, hospitals hire ethicists, and they look at, doing the surgery or not doing the surgery, or how things are handled. Was it handled in an ethical way in a hospital? Those kinds of things. And is that where we're going to end up in the innovation game, whether you're in tech or non-tech or an industry that typically has not had to handle this whole concept of ethics or ethicists as being part of your employment criteria? So these are the things that kind of got triggered by this question that I got during this keynote on Monday, that has led to me, spending the last couple of nights thinking about it, researching it, scribbling out a bunch of notes. And I think it's an important conversation that we in the industry should really think about. And again, I'm interested in your thoughts. So hop on over to killerinnovations.com for the show notes for today's show, and throw your thoughts into the comments section, and let's see if we can't at least raise the visibility and challenge ourselves to think about this in a broader way. Because in my view, those of us in the innovation game, if we don't think about this in this context, we could run the risk of it being something that we that could be a real challenge for us. Or if we do something really bad, it could be something that comes back and blows up in our face. So again, take a look at it and or go over to the show notes. Take a look at the show notes and add your comments and add your thoughts onto the down below, talking about this whole concept of ethical innovation. Now we're going to go in. We've got 2 more segments for the show. I'm still on the road. I'm not even sure what I'm going to talk about in the next 2 segments as I'm here on the road. This is a stream of consciousness, thoughts about what happened at this event up in Keystone. And so you're not going to want to miss it, because you'll be just as surprised as I will as to what I talk about. And we'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back. Obviously, I enticed you to stay with the show today and listen to segment 2. I am still in the car, driving from Keystone, Colorado, back down the mountains to Denver. As I said at the beginning of the show, I just wrapped up an annual 2-day conference that I host in Keystone with my team. We have about 400 people come into Keystone every year, and we talk about innovations and technologies, looking 3 to 8 years out into the future. It's a closed event, meaning 100% of the attendees are all under non-disclosures, and so therefore you won't be reading much in the way of news or articles about any of the innovations or technologies we show or talk about or discuss or think about at this conference. It's information shared with the attendees for the attendees to use to the advantage of their businesses, and it's always a great event. And like I said, I literally just got in the car up in Keystone, and driving down the mountains here. It's a beautiful day, and I just thought I'd grab the microphone and just do a stream of consciousness with you and share some of the highlights of the discussions that I can share, that I can make public. In segment 1, we talked about ethical innovation. That was one area that was of key importance. The other is around the pace of innovation, and combined with that with what I call innovation absorption. So the pace of innovation, one of the things we hear a lot about is that the pace of innovation is picking up. It's faster and faster, which then means that companies that are building those innovations have a shorter window in which to take that innovation, deliver it to the market, and get a return on that investment for what they worked on and what they invented. So, and it impacts particularly industries that are highly dependent on ecosystems, multiple vendors, multiple options. It also can be a real challenge for industries where the entire value chain of an innovation can get to be quite long and quite expensive, such as anything that has a semiconductor requirement to it. So if you're doing non-industry standard type of semiconductors, the cost of taping out, producing that chip, getting it through test, building prototype products, testing that product, and then finally ramping up volume, by the time you get all that hardware done, the next cycle of innovation is upon us. And so it's becoming a challenge as to how do you keep up with that pace. And the other issue is it's not only the creators of the innovations, but of their customers' ability to absorb, particularly in industries that have long, multi-year kind of planning cycles to deliver or implement a level of innovation. So we talk about innovation being fast and speedy, and speed is everything, but some industries and some customers have a hard time keeping up with the cycle. And even if you were an innovator and being able to pick up that pace, could your customers even absorb it? And that becomes kind of an interesting topic of conversation. But how do you synchronize? If you think about it like a transmission in a car, how would you mesh the gears between the innovators creating the innovation and the customer's ability to take that innovation and implement it into the business and be able to get the benefit from it? And then how do you denote value, right? Because if the innovation rate continues to increase, vendors need to find a way to how do they get a proper return for that investment of time and energy. At the same time, the customers are looking for value. How much am I spending to get this innovation? And in return, how do I get that value back? And that value is either time, money, productivity in my people, and how do I quantify that value? And is your innovation valuable enough for me to take to absorb it and put it in? And I had a front row seat all my years at HP behind this challenge, albeit it was at a much smaller scale than even what it is today. Given that at HP we produced Wintel products, right? So Windows, Intel platforms with PCs, laptops, servers, you name it. And if you look at the value chain of who gets to extract the value chain is heavily swung towards Microsoft and Intel, or Microsoft and AMD, and the actual manufacturers of the devices, laptops, PCs, etc. The margins are constantly under pressure and shrinking, and so how do you deal with that where Intel and Microsoft want to come out with new products to rationalize ever increasing revenue versus companies like HP needing to get a return on each and every product they produce, and therefore wanting to not quite keep up with the refresh cycle. And then you got consumers who are used to very fast refresh cycles because they get a new mobile phone every year or whatever. So the ecosystems are under a lot of stress and strain about how do you synchronize that so everybody gets their value element, and that you have a healthy ecosystem. Because great if Intel and Microsoft are getting their maximum value, but their OEMs, whether it be HP, Dell, Lenovo, Acer, whoever, is not healthy and they go out of business, it starts to have an impact. So what all innovators need to think about is if I'm creating innovations that have this ecosystem play, how do I make everybody healthy, and how do I synchronize the rate of innovation with the ability of the end customer to absorb it, buy it, deploy it, get value from it, fall in love with it, become a fan of it, and what are those cycle rates? And with everything accelerating, I think that's an area that most organizations don't think about enough, right? And it's, like I said, it is something that is actually picking up pace, not slowing down. And therefore, we're starting to see some of the cracks in a variety of industries and a variety of supply chains and a variety of ecosystems. And I'm primarily talking about hardware here, given that's my background. When at HP and even in the industry I'm in is highly dependent on hardware today. So what does it mean for software? The pace of software, the role of open source. Companies used to, say the value of their product was in their proprietary software. Open source can move much faster than anybody's proprietary software solution. So companies need to learn to let go even on software. So don't think you're immune. It applies to everything in the innovation game, and it's not just tech. It applies to healthcare, business processes, everything. So we're going to continue this conversation as we continue this drive from Keystone, Colorado, back down the mountains to Denver. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Yes, we are continuing this experiment. I am still in the car driving from Keystone, Colorado to Denver, Colorado. Actually, if this works out, it actually can make it easier for me to be on the show live or pre-record, given how much time I seem to be spending behind the wheel lately. The conference that just wrapped up in Keystone, again, this is an annual conference. It is a closed conference, so it's everybody's under non-disclosure, so the information doesn't get shared around it. But one of the things we do it each year at the show is we share the premiere of a video that we call The Near Future. We started this in 2016. There's a blog post on Vision Videos over at philmckinney.com, and you can go over there and check out all the Vision videos that I've worked on over my entire career, primarily starting in 2006. I did 6 films for Carly when Carly was CEO at HP, and we use these as Vision videos, and many of the executives at HP use them as kind of lead-off videos for keynotes and those kinds of things, and we showed them to customers. They were all focused at that time on mobile products, mobile services, and some of them went on to become quite influential, I guess. One would be one called Roku. Roku is just the name of the film, but it was built around a concept of a game that you played out in the real world. You took advantage of a mobile device, and you could play this game out, and you had to go around and collect icons or appear in very specific locations in order to do battle, etc. Now, keep in mind that this was 2006. And for all intents and purposes, if you play Pokemon Go, that is Roku from 2006. The interesting thing about that film is a number of startups would take that film and go in when they were pitching to venture capitalists to raise money, and they would show the Vision video. And then I would end up getting the call from the VCs. They all know, where the film came from, and would ask if I thought this company could go off and build the game like Roku. Well, we did the film in 2006. Remember what 2006 was like, right? It's, pre-iTunes and really, the connectivity and mobile apps and all those kinds of things. So we had a prototype device that they played the game on as they ran around San Francisco. So that was a Vision video. If you'd asked me at the time, I probably would have said 5 to 8 years out. And it actually ended up being a decade, because it was really 2016, 2017 with Pokemon Go that there was enough compute, enough wireless bandwidth, and et cetera, that allowed the game Roku to be produced in the form that we now know it as Pokemon Go. So that's an interesting just kind of calibration of these Vision videos. I did 6 of them in 2006, and then I provided an advisory role to Corning for the Day in the Life of Glass. And in fact, all those videos were done by the same team, some of that team being part of my organization at HP. And then in 2016, in my current role as a CEO, I thought, given that we're a research and innovation lab, that we need to find a better way to convey to those companies that fund and support us about how the innovations that we're inventing, how are they going to impact people's lives. So I went back to a method that worked very well for me in the past, and reassembled, put the band back together, and we produced these series of Vision videos we call The Near Future. And they're specifically designed to look at 3 to 8 years out. So the 2016 film was The Near Future, Bring It On. And it was addressing the question of what is the experiences in people's homes. What are consumers going to experience in their home when they have access to ultra high-speed bandwidth, 1 gigabit types of networks? And that include, work from home, gaming, education from home. And we showed that film in 2016, and it became extremely popular. In 2017, the Near Future film was titled The Near Future, A Better Place, and it looked at the aging population. So with the growing baby boomers, cost of healthcare, the lack of facilities of which can provide healthcare support for the aging population, and just the general desire of those in the aging population wanting to lead a longer and independent life. What would that mean? What would the home need to be able to accommodate? What would be the role of technology? What would be the role of networks? What would be the role of the healthcare systems to allow people to live a long and independent life. So that was the near future, a better life. Interesting little side story on that. If you go over to YouTube and you search for it and you find it and you watch it, you will notice that the actor who's playing the lead part in the 2017 film may look familiar. That gentleman, he actually has appeared in 500 films, and it is Rance Howard, Ron Howard's dad, Ron Howard, the director's father. And Rance got engaged on the project, became very enthusiastic, given, he's, been a little bit of a spokesperson about the aging population. And, even, I think he was 82 when we shot the film. He was still working as an actor and very, he was, very active. He flew with us around the country as we went to locations to shoot the film. Unfortunately, within, I don't know, probably 6-7 months after we released the film, Rance unfortunately passed away. And but we were, very pleased that he committed to our project. This year's film is The Near Future, Ready for Anything, and it's taking a look at education. If you think about it, how do we prepare students today to be able to work in the future with technologies that have not yet been invented, for jobs that don't even exist, to solve problems we don't even know about? The traditional educational approach is not going to be sufficient to prepare them, because we are shifting from this information economy to the innovation economy. And so how do we prepare the students? And that's what this film is really about. So this film is a combination of the role of technologies and bandwidth, communications, globalization of education. So how do students from all over the world join together because of their common interest or passion to learn something? And what is that role of the technologies and high-speed networks are going to be to make that a reality? But also a second part of it is to expose how we think in the future students will learn. It'll be about experimentation. It'll be about trying things and if not working out. And I won't do too much of a spoiler, but there's one scene in the film that looks at chemistry experiments in a traditional, like high school age, chem lab. And they're experimenting, but they're experimenting digitally, trying to make something explode. And in my keynote on yesterday, I pointed out that it's a much safer high school lab than when I was in high school, because I was the kid who was mixing things up and trying to blow up the lab in the high school. If anything exploded in my high school, I was the first person to be called in and interrogated. So, allowing students to learn by discovery is going to become an important part of this future of education. So the near future, Ready for Anything. We released the film yesterday. There's been, VentureBeat has written about it already. So go check it out. In fact, we'll try to embed some links into the show notes so that you can click on all 3 of the films and see and watch all of them. And vision videos, they may play a role in your own organization for how do you tell your stories. Particularly if you're in a tech world like I am, and you're very comfortable in tech, we tend to get caught up in talking about speeds and feeds and gigabits and nanometers and network latencies and all those kinds of things. And you're talking to other executives or end customers or government agencies, and their eyes are glazing over. Think seriously about vision videos and what the role of the vision video would be for you. And actually, if you're looking to do a vision video, reach out. I can give you some advice, some guidance, make some introductions for you, and help you bring your story to life. So with that, we're going to wrap up. Last segment will be 10 minutes to new ideas, so don't go anywhere. You're going to want to sit right there and now get your notebooks out, and let's see what ideas we can come up with. This segment of the show I call 5 minutes to new ideas. Designed for the creative mind looking for that next great idea. Each episode will challenge you to think differently about yourself and your business by asking unique, funny, and sometimes crazy questions. Get your notebook out and be ready to uncover that game-changing idea. Here is 5 minutes to new ideas. Price is king, right? Build them cheap, stack them high. It's practically the motto of most segments of the tech industry. Just go into a store on Black Friday here in the United States, and you will see technology literally stacked to the ceiling. Now, naturally, there are some notable exceptions for companies producing exclusive and high-priced products. It's certainly a core assumption about what the majority of customers want, which is stack it high, make it cheap. For example, $320 is a huge sum of money for a middle or lower class Indian family, but it didn't stop sales of HP's Dream Screen. HP customers saw the value of that Dream Screen would bring to their lives. The price, though, was steep, and that became the challenge. Did we believe that the price would warrant the purchase, or would it be the barrier? The lesson learned: never kill an idea because you assume your customers can't afford it. If the value the product brings to their lives justify the cost, they will go to the ends of the earth to find a way to make that purchase. Your first concern should be to make it relevant. Your second is to make it affordable. Remember that in many cases, the customer is not evaluating the perceived worth of your product solely on price, but more on the value they receive, the value they perceive they receive. They ask themselves, what do I get for the money that I'm going to spend? If you're getting tripped up in trying to understand if your customers will perceive your product as expensive, ask yourself if you are confusing price and value as being the same thing. Price and value are not the same thing. If there is sufficient value in the product, the customer will find a way to save for or finance their purchase. People will find a way to pay for the things that are important to them, and important is purely a subjective thing. Look at organic food markets. Vegetables that are certified as organic cost an average of 50% more than non-organic. Organic milk and meat can be as much as twice the price of conventionally raised products. Now, everybody benefits from healthy foods. I get that. But there's still no definitive study showing that an organic head of broccoli is dramatically healthier than its conventionally raised counterpart. Yet millions of people regard the extra cost of organic food as part of the cost of doing business or raising their family. Organic matters to them, and they will prioritize it, even if it means cutting out other items from their budget. Now, there are other ways to give a customer access to products that are theoretically too expensive for them to purchase. In the last 5 years, businesses that allow women to rent luxury items for monthly fees have become a huge trend. BegBorrowAndSteal.com allows a user to rent a Chloe handbag for $225 a month. At the end of the month, the customer returns the handbag and receives a new designer item in its place. The bag would have cost her more than $1,500 to buy it new. Other companies rent designer dresses for roughly 10% of the purchase price. The woman rents it, wears it, and returns it a few days later. There are questions here about whether these smaller rental companies are harming large luxury brands by devaluing their products they rent, or could be benefiting them by extending the brand's reach to a new audience. There are good reasons why Gucci, for instance, does not rent their dresses and bags directly to a customer. The person who purchases a dress for several $1,000s does not want to see it worn by her assistant for a tenth of that price. However, if that assistant then goes out and buys the perfume to go with the rented dress and begins a longer-term relationship with a brand like Chloe or Gucci or Louis Vuitton, then maybe it ultimately benefits these brands. The same goes for those who rent expensive sport cars for that special event from companies like Gotham Dream Cars. Here you can rent a Lamborghini Aventador, a car that retails, get this, for $468,000. A car way out of the price range
for 99% of the people. What does that rental cost? $2,500 for a 3-day rental. That 3-day rental is just enough time to impress that college reunion, to celebrate that special anniversary, or to pick up that client and win that deal. Either way, it's an interesting and innovative way to tap into people's desires, passions, provide them with the things they need and want, but wouldn't be able to consider even buying it given their income level. So ask yourself, who am I not selling to because I think they can't or won't pay for my product? Don't give up. Dig deeper. Is the expense of your product in some way central to how your customers think or feel about it? Would you benefit from having more people able to afford what you sell, or does its exclusivity magnify your potential customers' desire to buy it? Do not discount potential customer segments because of what you perceive their willingness is to pay. Remember, price and value are not the same thing. I'm Phil McKinney, and thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in. If you have any comments or suggestions, drop me a note over at phil@killerinnovations.com. Now, the reason I've been doing this show since 2005 is to pay back my early mentor by paying it forward. My first mentor, Bob Davis, invested an immense amount of time in training and coaching me, which had a major impact on my career. When I went back and asked him how I could pay him back, he just laughed and said I couldn't. I had to pay it forward. If I could ask for a favor, could you help me pay it forward? How? 1, give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts, as that helps spread the word. And 2, by telling others about the show. This episode of Killer Innovations was produced by the Innovators Network. You can find the show notes and the entire show catalog over at killerinnovations.com. I'll talk to you next week. In the meantime, go out and change the world with your killer innovation. Bye-bye.